Ladies and gentlemen, our 41st legend of Australian sport. And to make the presentation, the inaugural female legend of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, our Dawn Fraser, together with John Wiley, Chair of Sport Australia. Thanks to Dawn, and thanks also to John for that presentation. And I'd ask Louise to head to, oh, she's already off to the lounge, so that's fine. Sit down and ask Bruce to come from this side and have a chat with your fellow Hall of Famer. There you go, Brucey.
Well said, John, by the way. What a great speech. It really was. It captured everything, I think. But what's the recognition feel like for you right now? The recognition, being a legend of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
It's a huge honour. I think just to be a member already is just fantastic, but to be elevated to legend status and looking around the room at all the other legends that are hanging up on the walls is just, phenomenal to think that I'll be up there next year.
You will, absolutely. What made you a champion?
A lot of hard work, determination. Pretty stubborn, and I like going fast.
Over all sorts of different. Simple. Is it as simple as that? Is that what made Louise a champion?
Obviously, I really loved sport, and it was fantastic when I got involved in wheelchair sports at such a young age, and it was a great outlet, and I was a very active kid, and just got into everything. So, sport was just a way of life, and it is for so many people in this country.
You say all that, and yet those early days, we just saw how many operations before the age of 10, I think 21 or something like that. But Mum's here tonight. What was that early little bit for you and Rita and Morris, your father? I mean, how difficult was it for you?
I didn't know any different. I was actually born with my disability, so I didn't know any different. Part of going to the hospital and having operations was just part of life, unfortunately. I didn't, think anything of it at the time. I'm pretty sure my mum has some different memories to me. A lot of, I suppose, sleepless nights and worrying about me. But it's all right now. I've turned out all right. But I think it was pretty stressful at the time, and I didn't think anything of it, I suppose, and until I had spinal surgery, and that took me out of sport. So I was a bit like, okay, not good.
Was that when you were 14?
Yeah, when I was just a teenager, and I had to have, I had scoliosis, which is curvature of the spine. So I had 2 steel rods placed in my back, and it took me out of sport for about 2 years. And I don't know how they ever kept me away. I was so active, and I had to do that to get back into it.
Was that the toughest time for you? Because you were in hospital for a long time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in hospital for a long time. They were scheduled to do 2 surgeries, and unfortunately one of them didn't work, and I had to go back and do it all again. And I think they sat my mother down and had to tell her, because she was just crushed, and I was pretty crushed too. So it was pretty horrible that time.
You've mentioned Mum a couple of times at least tonight. Rita, where are you? Could you just put your hand up, Rita? Say, what a mum, eh? What a mum. You think about it. What's Rita like, Louise?
She's a bit of a character. She's very funny. She has no filter now. She's older as well.
Can she keep a secret?
Oh, kind of. She just forgets, so, you know.
Did she know about tonight?
She did, but she kept saying things and I said, no, it's a secret. Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
I think she's done a pretty good job. Now, your sister Anne's here tonight as well.
Yeah, my mum's here, my sister Anne, my two best mates, Karen and Karen.
That's easy to remember.
It is. And, of course, Joanne Ann is here too. So, yeah, I've got a bit of a crew come from all over Australia to be here tonight. So, very grateful for them to be here and all the people that have supported me throughout my career.
Well said. Let's talk a bit about that career. And look, it's just amazing when you see what you've achieved. I mean, it's just crazy over such a long period of time and so much success. But I want to ask you about the marathon and Boston in particular. In fact, Deke's in the room obviously tonight, and he, set the Boston record in 1986. But he was slow. He was 2 hours 7 minutes. You've done it in about 1 hour 34, haven't you?
Yeah, sorry, a bit quicker. Yeah, my fastest marathon was in Boston, 1 hour 34, and I think we had a hurricane up our butts, but it was definitely a tailwind that year. Doesn't happen very often, but I did Boston Marathon 9 years in a row. I think you've got to be a bit mad to do marathons in the first place, but that was the one I really wanted to win. It was the most prestigious, had the most prize money at the time, and everyone wanted to win Boston.
But they were hard to win because Jean Driscoll kept winning them, didn't she? And you were her great rival, but you got her in 1997, didn't you?
Yeah, Jean was just phenomenal. Every time she'd entered Boston, she'd won it, and I was like, okay, just a little daunting. But yeah, in 1997, I went into the race and was actually probably one of the strongest I'd been. Had a great preparation, and I got to a certain part of the race towards the finish, and Jean had never had anyone next to her at this part of the race because normally we'd get to the hills and I'd, say, see you later, Jean. And being the heaviest girl on the circuit, I went down the hills real good, but not up so good. So I'd never been with her at that point of the race, but this year I was. And there's a certain part of the race where you go across, they call them trolley tracks over there, the tram tracks, and you've got to take a good line in a race chair, otherwise you might get stuck. And Jean didn't take a good line this year and actually got one of her back wheels caught and came out, and so I went on to win the 97 Boston Marathon. And it was great. I'd won my first Boston. I was so excited, but kind of didn't live down everyone saying, well, you only won because Jean crashed. So, of course, we went back and did it all again.
You won again in 98, 99, and then I think in 2001 as well. So, with all those Olympics and World Championships and Commonwealth Games, and not just, I say just Paralympics, but you also competed at the Olympics and exhibition events and the World Athletics Championships where you'd never lost at exhibition events. Tell us about the whole Sydney 2000 experience.
For me, I had the privilege of representing Australia twice, first at the Olympic Games and then, of course, as I like to say, the premier event, the Paralympic Games. But for me, obviously, I think it's any athlete's dream to have a home games in the prime of their career, and for me it was exactly that. I was in the prime of my career and I won gold at the Olympic demonstration event and then came back and did the Paralympics. But not only competing and being successful as an athlete, for the 2000 Games for me, I was most proud because of how Australia embraced the Paralympics, and I really think it was a turning point in Paralympic Games. I'd been in Atlanta 4 years earlier and it was done really poorly, and I was so determined that Australia was going to put on a good show and we were going to do it right. People were going to come to our games, they were going to be educated, they're going to know what the sports were all about, and it did, it happened. It was fantastic, and I was so proud. I had athletes, international athletes, come up to me and, you know, say, you know, we're on the front cover of the paper, the back page, we're on the news every night. This is phenomenal. It has never happened in Paralympic sport before. So that made me more proud than anything, the way Australia embraced it. And I think, it was definitely a massive turning point in Paralympics, and it's just gone on to be stronger and stronger. And, you know, even London was another massive turning point for us too. So I think we're here to stay and just get bigger and bigger, and look out, we'll be on your screens forever more.
No question about that. So Lou, well done, Sydney, eh? Well done. Matthew came up earlier and talked about the fact that he watched you. I know Kurt's in the room, who's a legend in his own way, absolutely. So those guys, and both of them, you've had an influence on. I mean, how does that make one feel?
I didn't actually know about Matt, so that was kind of cool. It's exciting. I think it's really important for a lot of the athletes to be able to see Paralympic sport, to see athletes that are similar to themselves or that have a disability, so they can, you know, really recognise what's possible out there and see, you know, identify with somebody. Sometimes I think they find it hard to identify with the able-bodied athletes, but they can see somebody else that's doing it, then why not? Yeah, so it's fantastic that we see more and more athletes come through now. It's my goal, I suppose, to make my sport bigger and better, and yeah, it's getting there.
It sure is. Louise, how hard was it to give up being an elite athlete? I mean, was it an easy transition for you?
It wasn't an easy transition to retire. Unfortunately, I carried a number of injuries, and I knew that I was retiring after Athens, so it wasn't really a choice kind of thing. Sometimes, you know, I had to make a sensible decision. Had a lot of problems with my shoulders and impingements and a number of things, just the repetitive nature of the sport. So I knew I had to retire, but I'd also achieved so much, and there was, you know, I'd done everything that I ever wanted to, but being just slightly competitive, I would have loved to have kept going if the body was willing. The mind is still willing. But yeah, it was kind of tough to retire. And then I think, like a lot of sports people, and then I'm sure there's lots in the room that can identify that you've done something and you've been at the top of your career, and just you're really, really good at something, and then of course it's stopped and it's gone, and it's hard to move forward from that sometimes. It's something that you know so well, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and what do you do next? So it is very tough. For me, going to the next Paralympics as a coach 4 years later was probably one of the hardest things that I did going into Beijing. I really struggled with that, but it's been a few years now, so I'm good.
You are so good. Congratulations. Congratulations on everything you've done, on the great inspiration, the great sports person you've been. I've just got to ask one last question. Frank Ponta, mentor, sportsmanship. Just finish, just tell us what somebody can do for somebody when you really believe in what they're saying.
Frank Ponta was my first coach in WA, and he went to the first Paralympics ever in 1960, and he really believed in me. He was someone that knew the talent that I had, and I had no idea. I wasn't a kid that grew up thinking, oh, I'm going to go represent Australia at Paralympics. I had no idea what the Paralympics were. I was just having fun, and he could just see it in me. And he taught me so much about, I suppose, life in general and sportsmanship more than anything. I remember as a junior and going to my first competition, and I was so cocky. and he'd be like, no, don't say anything, just let your actions show and your performances. So he did teach me a lot about sportsmanship and just life in general, and what better person could you have than someone that went to the first Paralympics ever to know what it was all about and to really guide me in the journey that I've had.
You'd be proud tonight, as Rita is in your family. Louise, you are a legend. Louise Sauvage, a legend of Australian sport.